What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to the Post Position Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jack Duffy. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the episode today, but Jack can man the ship as always. On today's episode, we introduce our new co-host, Brock Landis. You'll love Brock. He's TPL's bodyguard. He is the stat magician. You'll love his energy and what he brings to the podcast. I'm really excited for the future with Brock on the podcast. But on today's episode, Jack and Brock do some post-trade deadline talk about some buyout candidates, introduce a few new segments that we'll be consistently doing on the Triple P podcast. They also talk about general stuff happening around the league, Kevin Durant, Marcus Smart, Bojan Bogdanovic's game winner, and some other things like that. So let's get to it.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the next episode of the Post Position Podcast, brought to you by the Paint and Lines. Joining me today, we have a new co-host. If you saw it on my Twitter or the Post Position Twitter, we have Brock Landis joining us. Brock, I like to call him the Paint and Lines bodyguard. He is a Sixers and general NBA writer for us. We're really excited to have him on today. Jack couldn't be joining us. You'll be seeing him in an episode later this week. Brock, what's going on?
Jack, my guy, I'm thrilled to join Triple P's, and listen, I'm going to bring in a football reference here. When Lamar Jackson replaced Joe Flacco on the Baltimore Ravens, everybody was skeptical at first. Now, I'm not saying I'm the unanimous MVP most valuable podcaster, but I'll suffice as a replacement. So it's unfortunate that our other Jack Duffy couldn't make it today. I'm excited to talk hoops with him when he gets back, but listen, my guy, Jack, let's talk some basketball. I'm a fine enough replacement, and I don't shut up, so I got plenty to talk about.
We'll just quick end this. A couple days ago, we had the NBA trade deadline. There was a couple of flurry of moves, some things we didn't expect, some things we did. So I want to get your thoughts on them, Brock. First one we have here is the 12-player mega deal that sent Clint Capella to the Atlanta Hawks, Robert Covington to the Houston Rockets, and a plethora of players to other places. What was your reaction to that?
Now, I was a little surprised because we can talk about the Houston small ball approach and how they're trying to renovate basketball with the Rockets organization. But for Clint Capella, I'm super excited. Now, Houston's a team that did away with the pick and roll. In the previous 4 years, they went from top 10 in the league to top 12 to top 15 to falling out of that range to running the pick and roll almost the least amount of any team in the NBA. A player like Clint Capella is primarily a center and not a floor spacer. Unfortunately for him, he was really of no service in Houston anymore other than catching lobs or maybe freeing a body up or two. But for Clint Capella now, he gets an opportunity in Atlanta where Atlanta loves to run the pick and roll. Trae Young is a very elusive point guard that has limitless range. Having Clint Capella open up spacing and create windows of opportunity for Trae Young is not only going to be great for that Atlanta offense, but at the same time, Clint Capella will get more opportunities to feast in the paint. He'll be able to catch lobs. Trae Young, he does a lot of floaters similar to James Harden. So for Clint Capella, I'm very excited. He finally gets to fulfill a different role this time in the Eastern Conference. And for Houston, they get Robert Covington, who was the former poster child of the rebuild era in Philadelphia. And Jack, I know you're a huge Robert Covington fan, so let me kick it to you. Are you excited about Robert Covington now wearing Houston stitches?
I was heartbroken he didn't become a Sixer. I felt Houston did give a lot in that package. I just want to say I think Atlanta, you said it perfectly with all of the stat-wise, with the pick and roll in Atlanta. I think that's a great deal for Atlanta. They really gave up not much at all to get Capella. Great player for them. I love Robert Covington. He is very bipolar in people that hate him and people that love him. And I think you can tell him on the love side. I think he's a great 3-and-D player. He's an incredible defender. He's a good volume shooter. I think he's a great fit in what Houston's trying to do with this small ball lineup. Grant, I did think they gave a little too much, but he's cost controlled for the next 3 years. He's in the best years of his career. I think it was a perfect get for Houston. He fits perfectly. He played great when they played Los Angeles the other night, first game back. I think he's going to be a great fit for them in Houston. And like I talked about in Atlanta, I think that's just a great move for them. You kind of mentioned perfectly, Houston's kind of gotten out of that pick and roll mindset. They've completely changed the offense. They're going completely small ball. There really was no room for Capella there anymore, and now he has a great spot in Atlanta. So
Yeah. So let me ask you this, right? Prior to this trade, according to StatMuse, the Rockets were 10-1 without Capella this season. They were undefeated in games where no Rockets player taller than 6'6" played more than 10 minutes. When they played the Lakers, it was the first time in over 50 years where Houston featured a lineup of that sort and they won a basketball game.
That's incredible.
Now that there's a little bit more of a sample size, Houston's played 3 games and they've lost all of which since that Los Angeles game. My question to you is, does this small ball work? And will it work? Will there be sustained success? Now, in my opinion, I think no. Houston has gotten a little bit more in terms of opportunities. They've gone to the line less, but playing 5 out has led them to shoot 1 or 2 more threes than their season norm. But their defensive rating, which was a poor 110 on the season, has now climbed to 117.3. Defensively, I don't know how you can employ a center at 6'6", 6'5", and PJ Tucker, but I'm curious to know what you think. Can this small ball work?
Well, I feel like Los Angeles was the biggest test as to if this lineup would work going against Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, a lineup of a lot of big guys. But I'm going to bring another NFL comparison in it, like you brought earlier. A lot of when these rookie quarterbacks, you see them dominate their first 2 games, and everybody thinks they're the next big thing. They kind of flutter off. It's just because of lack of film. Like you said, I mean, this has really never been seen before, so I don't think Los Angeles really knew what to expect. So obviously, Houston had the upper hand in their ability to dominate that. So as their sample size of this grows larger, it will be interesting to see. I think as they get more acclimated in a playoff series, I still believe Los Angeles would win. It's just you throw Anthony Davis in the post, who's going to be able to guard me? And then you just kick it out, and you have LeBron, Danny Green, Quinn Cook, one of these guys out there that can be able to knock down a shot for them. I just don't really see as to how they can control that interior game. And then any way you go in the playoffs of Houston, I think as so many people have mentioned, you're going to face Jokic, Gobert, Davis, one of these elite big guys in the Western Conference that you're going to have a problem with. I think it will cause some issues, but it'll be interesting how they keep going forward. I mean, it's such a small sample size, I really can't judge it's been a success or a failure just far. So it'll be interesting to see going forward.
Most definitely. And teams are definitely going to throw them fits with opposing centers. But Houston, a team that did away with the pick and roll with a true center, is now running pick and rolls with Russell Westbrook as the roll man. And it's been pretty funny to watch because most recently against Utah, you saw Rudy Gobert step out to play double team on a pick and roll. And then the cutter to the basket is Russell Westbrook, which, of course, is a mismatch in favor of Houston because Rudy Gobert's not quick enough to keep up with Russell Westbrook cutting to the basket. But I'm not sure Houston can sustain success like this. But nonetheless, at least they're trying to renovate basketball.
Yeah, I agree. And there's another interesting trade that also happened as a major one. There's a couple here, but the next biggest one was D'Angelo Russell. He was thought to kind of be this next part of the Big Four in Golden State, and then everything sort of fell apart. And he's now traded to Minnesota to be his best friend, Karl Anthony Towns. In exchange, Andrew Wiggins is now in Golden State, and it's what I like to call the ultimate heat check of the Golden State culture. I saw that on Twitter, and I absolutely love it. He is obviously, I think, one of the best physical specimens of just raw talent in the NBA, and he's really just been around a lot of losing his career. And the question is, will Golden State's culture and locker room and their play style be able to change that? What do you think about that?
I think this is a perfect opportunity for Andrew Wiggins. I think this season he'll have to carry the load as a primary offensive focal point, but with no pressure on his shoulders. Now, Golden State's a team that has their identity. Klay Thompson is under contract, Draymond Green is under contract, and you presume Steph Curry will play his entire career in Golden State. This is a transitional year. Golden State's going to get younger, and they're going to pair that youth with the 3 I just named. Now, for Andrew Wiggins, I think he's a perfect fit in Golden State because Andrew Wiggins is the type of player that he's not going to do too much offensively. It's not like he's a ball-dominant player. He's a low-maintenance, low-usage player that can create shots off the dribble and fill it elsewhere on the box score. So for Andrew Wiggins, I really like this opportunity to reinvent himself in Golden State. And I think we're going to see a little bit of it next season. Now, of course, salary had to match, which is why he was involved in this trade. I don't think Golden State is looking to build around Andrew Wiggins. But like I said, you've got no vacancy at the point guard position. You've got no vacancy at the 2 spot. You've essentially got no vacancy at the 4. So you have to kind of mold between 3 and 5. And I think Andrew Wiggins is a really good player to experiment with at that 3 position as a combo guard kind of on the wing. He could defend taller players, smaller players as well. He could space the floor with his shooting, and gravity is exactly what Golden State wants. So he could be very efficient, and I'm looking forward to seeing if he can reinvent himself in Golden State.
A lot of people have kind of called him the current version of that 2016 Harrison Barnes role for this upcoming Golden State team. Obviously, this year, I feel like going forward, it's just seeing if he's going to be a fit there. They have only, I think it's 12 wins on the year. They really are out of playoff contention. They aren't really worried. The best comparison for this is probably the 99 or whatever, at 98-99 San Antonio Spurs getting Tim Duncan out of the draft, David Robinson hurt, and reloading the next year. I feel like that is what is the best example for Golden State this year. They're kind of just, everybody's hurt. They're going to recoup. They'll be back next year. Their goal this year is just to get a high draft pick and retool and kind of get themselves ready to develop some of their younger talent. And you've seen that this year with Eric Pascal kind of being developed into another quality player for them. I do think Wiggins will be great. I think this flow offense that Golden State has are constantly moving. I think will be something that's good for him. He'll get a couple of shots. He has played okay so far. I mean, there's really not a lot of sample size for him going forward so far. I mean, I'm just looking so far. He played, I remember his first game, he had about 22 points. And I don't know if they've played again since. I'm taking a look here. But I mean, so far, I mean, I really can't complain. Yeah, it was 8-12 with 24 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. He was a -2 on the floor, but this is against Los Angeles. Again, this is another debut player going up against Los Angeles. This is his first test, and he played. It was a 125-120. I mean, they really don't have much of a crew in Golden State currently. They're all hurt, but I do think this would be a good fit for him if Wiggins gets in that right mindset and just uses his ability and works on it and develops the next player. I mean, everybody thought he was the next best thing coming out of Kansas, and he still has that talent. It's just if he has the work ethic that he wants to put forward to do it. Now, on the flip side of things, Russell in Minnesota will be something interesting to see. I know him and Towns are very good friends. Russell, he's a volume shooter. He likes to shoot the ball a lot. He's okay on the inside. He's not really the best. He's a quick guy. No defense at all. One thing I don't like about this is the defensive pairing between him and Towns is absolutely horrendous. I'm sure you're going to have some stat about that in 20 seconds. But it's just, I think it's good for Anthony Towns to have a good buddy for him there. He was getting very displeased, and now he's a good friend there. Culture, these guys want to succeed, and I think that's half the battle with NBA. Some of these NBA guys is just wanting to be better and wanting to succeed. And I feel like these are two guys that want to do that. And their first game, they played great. I mean, McLaughlin or whatever his name was, he had 24 points. Absolutely incredible. I never even heard of him before the other night. I'm really excited to see what Minnesota has going forward. What do you think?
I like the Malik Beasley addition, and I'm not sure if Malik Beasley will be retained in Minnesota because he's an upcoming free agent, but Malik Beasley is a player that gets an opportunity now to showcase what he's capable of. He was buried in Denver's rotation. He was inconsistent in limited bursts, but now he'll get true starter minutes and an opportunity to prove what he's capable of. So I think Malik Beasley can earn himself a more lucrative contract. I really like pairing D'Angelo Russell with Karl Anthony Towns. Now, Jack, you mentioned defense, and this was one thing I was looking at for D'Angelo Russell. In 2015, defensive rating of 110. 2016, 114. 2017, 112. And this season, nearly 115. So D'Angelo Russell is defensively not a good player. And whether that be due to lack of effort or a lack of capabilities, he is not good on the defensive end. But pairing him with Karl Anthony Towns is a culture shock. And you said the word culture. That was exactly what I was looking forward to talking about. In Minnesota, they've been deprived of culture for the previous 2 to 3 seasons. There really hasn't been any cohesion. There's been turnover with coaching and the front office, and I think Minnesota is really trying to reestablish identity and culture. And the one way you do so is pairing an unhappy Karl Anthony Towns, according to some reports that surfaced earlier this year, with his alleged best friend in the NBA, D'Angelo Russell. Now, I doubt Devin Booker ends up in Minnesota pending his free agency. But pairing the two of them is going to be really important for not only playing on the court, but recruiting. And Minnesota can potentially be a destination where other players want to play. It's a youth movement, and Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell are great guys to do that. So Minnesota, they're building something different. It's a different identity. It's definitely going to be a culture shock. But again, it's another situation where I'm very excited to see what pans out. I was very thrilled with this trade deadline. I was really pleased. But Jack, that raises another question for me, right? Let's say Devin Booker goes to Minnesota, which again I don't think he will, but you've got Devin Booker, D'Angelo Russell, and Karl Anthony Towns. That's a pretty formidable trio. Now, what would Brock Landis, Jack, and Jack from the PPP podcast do against anybody from TPL if the trio paired up of us three? You think we're running people off the court? How do you think that's going to work? That works to a certain extent, man. But I'm only 5'9" on a good day, so you two might need to space the floor and run some picks or off ball to get me into space with a small matchup.
I'm not what you shoot. I feel like Jack's game is, but
yeah, I feel like Jack.
I feel that too. I mean, he's been working on. He talks a lot in Malik Monk. Maybe he taught him a thing or two.
Yeah, well, if he's learning from Malik Monk, then who knows?
So the other, I mean, you did mention one thing. I'm gonna say, good God, the defense would be terrible in Minnesota if they got Devin Booker. They might be able to drop 120, but they might be giving up 140.
Yeah.
So the next big trade we had that was talked about was kind of, well, I mean, big in that sense of a player, but really not much was moved. Andre Drummond to Cleveland for pennies on the dollar, pretty much, giving just Detroit getting rid of his player option, not worrying about his salary this offseason, pretty much getting John Henson, Brandon Knight, and I think it was a second-round pick in return. Cleveland, I don't know what Cleveland's trying to do with this. I feel like, I mean, Kobe Altman, I don't know what his exact plan is. Maybe, he seems like a smart GM. Maybe he has something else up his sleeve, but the idea I have in my head is giving Kevin Love somebody and then trying to run for somebody else in free agency. But I don't know if you really have the money for it. If Drummond's going to want to stay, maybe if somebody said, but I forget who it was, I'm sorry, but they kind of said it's like leasing an expensive car for 3 months, and if you don't like it, you just get rid of it. So I don't know. This will be interesting. I don't know if Andre Drummond's really going to affect your win total. He's definitely going to get average 20 rebounds. I think Tristan Thompson's going to lose his spot. I think he'll become unhappy. So I don't know what this move really does for him. I get on Detroit's part. I feel like they could have gotten a lot more if they did pull the trigger a couple weeks back, but they kind of waited and got next to nothing for this. What do you think this is the reasoning for Cleveland doing this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect analogy. I'm not really sure why either team was interested in this trade. Now, for 2020, Andre Drummond has a player option where if he opts in, he's due for $28 million. He did sign a 5-year max contract, but for Cleveland, I don't know. You've got Kevin Love, Tristan Thompson, not too many guards. I mean, the youth, they need somebody to mentor them. I'm not sure Andre Drummond is that player to do so. So, again, I'm not really sure what motivated this trade, especially for Detroit, who virtually got nothing back. But it seems like they just wanted to get this contract off the books. And Andre Drummond was really displeased with the organization in doing so because they didn't even really have the decency to tell him this was going to happen. And they preached loyalty to him, and yet they parted ways with him for, like you said, almost nothing. I really don't know, unless Cleveland intends to keep Andre Drummond in their future. I'm not sure what the motivation was for this. You could tell I'm lost for words trying to describe this trade, but I feel bad for Andre Drummond. I mean, this is a player that's growing obsolete according to today's NBA standards, and it's unfortunate because when you look at what he does, I mean, he's a true center. He averages almost 18 points a game, and that's for the previous 3 seasons. He's a great rebounder. Defensively, he collects a lot of rebounds. He blocks nearly over a shot per game. So Andre Drummond is a player that's effective, but in today's NBA, he's growing almost obsolete. And because of that, I think he's going to struggle to really succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It was
the
just
latter half of his career.
I don't get this move. I mean, I feel like Detroit had a motive, and they had a lot more opportunity to do something earlier in the year, and a lot more coming towards them, and they kind of just shut it down. I don't know what's going on. That's just what it felt like for the rumors and everything that was swirling. But I do see like Detroit is trying to rebuild. I get what they're trying to do. It's just they couldn't get much return. They needed to do something now in case Drummond opted into his option. He's like, I want to go here, and kind of held them for ransom in the offseason. So I get what they're kind of trying to do there. Again, like we kind of said, Cleveland, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out this summer. Who knows? But they're
Well, as of let me interrupt you real quick because I'm seeing reports that as of February 7th, Andre Drummond is expected to pick up his option on the contract at the end of the season. And while he will let things play out, he views the Cavs as a long-term opportunity.
I feel like that's just
according to
good
Sports
PR for a
Illustrated. So
player
who knows?
that's trying to get there. I don't. If he's a player that wants to succeed, I
Could
feel
be.
like it's a downgrade going from Detroit to Cleveland. And Connell, it's just I don't see it. They need a complete. Their star player doesn't want to be there. He's throwing the ball at teammates. He's telling the GM to trade me. Like I don't know if that's the exact culture I would want to stay in. But going on to our next kind of interesting trade with our hometown Sixers here, they got Glenn Robinson and Alec Burks from the Golden State Warriors for 3 second rounders. So they shipped away James Ennis, and they also are waiving Kyle Quinn. They waived Jonah Bolden, and they also waived Trey Burke. So you kind of have a new infusement of energy off the bench. Alec Burks is probably going to be a backup ball handler for you, and Glenn Robinson's going to be a good 3-point shooter. We kind of saw Glenn Robinson play last night. He's zooming all over the place, cutting off of anything and everything. Played pretty decent. Alec Burks will probably make his debut on Tuesday. I'll be there in person against the Clippers. So it'll be exciting to see going forward. But what are your thoughts on Philadelphia's move here?
I love this move. You essentially got two very high impactful players for the cost of nothing. Now, I don't want to call second round picks nothing because, of course, you could still draft players, but I think for what they accomplished in the trade, they sent over a very low risk package and yet got back two immediate impact players from their bench. Glenn Robinson, he shot over 40% on catch and shoot 3-point opportunities in 4 of his 6 seasons, and his off ball movement is refreshing. He's a very good feel in the half court offense for cutting, and that'll really complement both Ben Simmons in transition and Joel Embiid in the post. Alec Burks is a player that you could utilize in a multitude of ways. He can be used coming off of screens. 53 points off of screens this season, which is more than Josh Richardson, Luka Doncic, and Spencer Dinwiddie, who pretty frequently utilize screens. He has 37 points via cut, which is just 3 less than Al Horford, so he cuts almost as much as Glenn Robinson. Now, granted, his game is a little more polished. He could shoot the ball and space the floor more. You can run dribble handoffs with Alec Burks. He has 12 games, 12 or 13 games where he scored over 20-plus points. So he's a microwave off the bench, and I think Philadelphia can really, really, really use these guys in a second unit. But at the same time, you can plug and play them with your starting rotation.
I mean, I agree with that. Like you said,
players that can be
just
very
throwing them in the line. I feel like these are guys you can put in there if you're needed to. Glenn Robinson's near 40% 3-point percentage. I feel Alec Burks, he's just going to be a great player, I feel like, for off this bench. I think this will help kind of put some energy into this much-needed Philadelphia 76ers culture that just desperately needs something right now. I mean, granted, they've won 2 games, but they've been against the Grizzlies and the Bulls, and they've been very close. A lot of drama going on in that locker room. Embiid shushing the fans, saying he was shushing himself. Just a lot going on in there. I don't know. I don't like talking about it. I want my Sixers to be nice and perfect. I hate talking about this scenario, what's going on. Everybody's saying trade Embiid, trade Simmons. I just want everyone to be perfect, happy, and be friends. But obviously we don't live in a perfect world. I'm hoping this will kind of fix it. Do you think this does anything to fix the Sixers' woes?
On the court, yes. Off the court, no. On the court, I say yes just because, like I said, in a half-court offense, they diversify the Sixers. But in the locker room, they seem pretty introverted. And, I mean, Josh Richardson has stepped up, and a leader is a leader. So despite how short his tenure in Philadelphia has been, he's still being a leader and orchestrating team meetings. But I don't necessarily think Alec Burks or Glenn Robinson can do anything to, I guess, appease the internal problems and fix the external
I don't think it'll fix much either. I'm hoping it's got to start from the top if they want to do something, and hopefully that can happen. So The next part of this is kind of some of the guys who weren't traded also turn into some buyout candidates. Now, I have a couple of guys here. I don't know if you have a couple of buyout candidates. I don't have one here of some possible people that might get bought out. A rumored signing that wasn't a buyout was Darren Collison, but he is staying retired. He was looked at by the Los Angeles Lakers and the Clippers as a possible signing, but he is staying where he is. A huge blow to the Lakers. I feel like didn't make a move this deadline because they expected him to come their way. So I do have a couple guys here. The first one I have is Mo Harkless. Mo was traded from the Clippers to the Knicks as part of that Marcus Morris deal. And the Knicks, it's been reported if he wants a buyout, they will grant it. I think Mo is somebody that you could see land. My guess for Mo is Philadelphia. I think he's somebody that will land there at this spot because Kyle Quinn's likely going to be one to be waived. I think he's somebody you put in that spot for them. Where do you think Mo Harkless lands?
I like Philadelphia. I know he said he wanted to remain in New York, Nick, but of course we know what's going to happen with that. I mean, I guess I like Mo Harkless to Philadelphia. I haven't really explored the possibility of that, but I think he stays in the Eastern Conference just because it seems like there's a lot more teams active in the Eastern Conference for buyout players. I don't necessarily see him going to a Milwaukee or a Miami, but I could potentially see maybe a relationship being established with Indiana or a bottom feeding team like the Nets or the Magic in the Eastern Conference playoff standings. But you raise a great point that Philadelphia is definitely looking to waive Kyle O'Quinn if he wants that to happen. And Mo Harkless is a very plug and play option right there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at who's left. Milwaukee would have been an interesting option, but they have already signed Marvin Williams. He's kind of the next guy to put in there. Milwaukee's kind of somebody they like the culture they have in their locker room. They really don't want to tinker with that too much. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I don't expect him to bring in two buyout candidates. I think they'll just stick with Marvin Williams, which is a great get. I'm sure we'll have Jack talk about that more when he joins us later in the week. But then I think that's where I think Mo Harkless lands in Philadelphia. I don't know. Indiana, a couple of the other spots would be interesting. I just think Philadelphia is the best option. The next person I have here is possibly Reggie Jackson might get bought out. I don't think he does. He'd be interesting if he does. I think he goes to Los Angeles Lakers, and they need a ball handler. I think he's a perfect slot in for them. He's been in Detroit for a while. I think that's just a perfect get for the Lakers. Where do you think Reggie Jackson goes?
I like the Lakers too if he gets bought out. Like you said, they really desperately need a ball handler, and Darren Collison teased a return for months on end, and the Lakers were that top destination, and they wine and dined him. He sat courtside. They gave him a warm ovation, and yet he decided that the timing wasn't right. So I think if there is a good ball handler with merit that does get bought out, the Los Angeles Lakers are going to be the most aggressive team to heavily pursue that point guard.
Yeah, I don't really know where else he goes. I mean, there's a couple other people that are lingering around. Another name that's mentioned is Isaiah Thomas. I don't know where IT really goes from here. He's kind of fluttered a lot. His hip injury, and as he's gotten older, have really kind of just depreciated him a lot. He got waived by the Clippers. He's already seen time with the Cavaliers, the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Celtics, the Suns, the Kings. I think I think he'll sign. I just don't think it'll be of a high-profile team. Maybe a team like Chicago or somebody of that tier will bring him on. I don't see him going to a contender. Where do you think Isaiah Thomas lands?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there. Now, Isaiah Thomas is a great team first player. He's awesome for the locker room. So I think a team that's rebuilding might bring Isaiah Thomas on because there's nothing to lose and he can kind of mentor the youth. I don't really think Isaiah Thomas is the type of player to propel a contender to a championship title. So looking at who's contending in that playoff picture in the Eastern Conference, the Magic have a lot of guards in their rotation. The Nets have a lot of guards in their rotation. Isaiah Thomas doesn't fit with Indiana, nor does he fit with the Heat. The Boston Celtics return, I highly doubt that happens, especially given their guard rotations. And then the Bucks, the Raptors, and the Sixers are left. I highly doubt any of them pursue Isaiah Thomas. And in the Western Conference, the Lakers, if they were going to pull the trigger on Isaiah Thomas, probably would have done so already. The Nuggets won't have a relationship rekindled with Isaiah Thomas, in my opinion. The Clippers are the team that waived him. And then you look through 4 through 10, I mentioned that Isaiah Thomas probably doesn't propel a contender. I don't think the Spurs, Trailblazers, Pelicans, or Grizzlies have a spot on him. And then the remaining teams with vacancy would really be like Dallas, Oklahoma, and Houston. And Houston's already going small as it is, so I don't think they want to substitute Russell Westbrook in the second unit for Isaiah Thomas, who's one of the shortest players in the NBA. I'm not really sure where he ends up, but I do think it will be for a team that's not looking towards the playoffs, but rather to nurture their youth.
Yeah, I agree. It will be an interesting buyout market. I don't know there'll be a lot of big names out there. Is there any other buyout candidates you want to talk about that I didn't mention?
I know Wayne Ellington is hooping of late. This previous week, he's shooting 60% on catch-and-shoot opportunities. If he gets bought out from New York, I really like him as a viable option for Philadelphia. E'Twaun Moore is an interesting option. If New Orleans buys him out, he would be the priority as a Philadelphia 76er fan, but his shooting and contributions from mid-range and driving could be used on a lot of playoff contending teams. So those are two guys I've been watching, and Marco Bellinelli is another guy out in San Antonio who, if he potentially gets bought out, his movement shooting can complement a lot of teams around the perimeter. So he's a name I'd watch out for.
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting name to watch for sure. I feel like as we get further and further, we'll see some more names kind of emerge out of the woodworks. So I want to get into a couple of things we got going on here. We kind of want to.
Well, real quick, let me cut you off because we didn't even talk about a Philly native, Dion Waiters, right? And I saw somebody tweet. It was funny. Somebody tweeted, Dion Waiters has to be the first person in history who got so high that his employer is giving him $25 million to leave.
Yeah, people have said bring Waiters Island to Philadelphia. He's not a good fit. I mean, for a team that wants to fix locker room culture, I don't know if Dion Waiters is the guy you want to bring in to help fix all of that. Mm-hmm. Los Angeles, I believe, has shown some sort of interest. I feel like they had the meme team last year. I don't know if this is the year for Dion Waiters and the Clippers or for the Lakers. I don't know where he would land. I feel like there's a couple interesting playoff spots you might see him, but I don't expect a major move for him just because of his off-the-court issues he has going on. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. And Los Angeles is going to be linked to a lot of players in this buyout market because that's the second trade deadline, except this time you don't have to really part ways with a lot of your assets. So I think teams like Los Angeles and Philadelphia, maybe Dallas, are going to be linked to a lot of these potential buyout free agents. But when push comes to shove, there's probably only going to be 5 to 6 that are signed that can create immediate impacts. And I don't think Dion Waiters is going to be one of those players.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. So anyways, going forward, we want to kind of establish a couple weekly segments that kind of bring some new life in here with Brock. I have the first one. We call it Around the League. It's just basically a summary of some things that have gone on in the NBA the past couple days. So the first one I'll let you talk about. It was your one you're really excited about. Kevin Durant working out in the gym. What do you got to say about it?
Yeah, now Kevin Durant's been working out. He's been hooping. He's been rehabbing. And he signed with a completely different organization. He came over to the East. He's rebranding himself in Brooklyn. He's going to be playing alongside Kyrie Irving, who's a friend of his outside of basketball. And they really want to establish something, I guess, special in Brooklyn. And in watching Kevin Durant, he's running phenomenally. I mean, his cuts look great. He's shooting great. He's playing well in the post in these videos in the gym. He just looks awesome. I think there's a possibility he could return this season, but I don't think he will. And I just really want to talk about appreciating greatness. And now that I have a moment to, I think NBA fans need to appreciate the greatness of Kevin Durant. He recently went on an All the Smoke podcast with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, and he talked a lot about the media, the scrutiny, Twitter, a free agent period, what that's like for an NBA player playing with the Warriors, and everything of that sort. And he's just a really down-to-earth, personable guy. He loves basketball. He loves talking. He loves communicating with people on social media. And I think, unfortunately, due to nearsightedness, a lot of people take him for granted and use the decision he made against him. But at the end of the day, this is a business. And a lot of the problem, in my opinion, is that if a player makes a decision to benefit their own best interest, that's when they face the most criticism. Whereas if an organization has the best interest of the organization in mind and they ruthlessly part ways with a player without telling them, or trade a player who committed everything to that organization, things like that, I don't think that gets talked about a lot. So for a player like Kevin Durant, I think people really need to appreciate greatness. And if he has a second life after that gruesome injury and he's dominating in Brooklyn, then that's fine. For me as a Philadelphia 76er fan, I wouldn't mind that. And I think people around the league need to wake up a little bit and appreciate the greatness in front of them, because Kevin Durant is truly one of a kind, and he was at the forefront of revolutionizing basketball.
I do think this is. I like to see him active. It will be interesting to see him. We'd like to. The Achilles injury is something very hard to come back from, let alone in your 30s. But I feel like Ben Simmons shooting threes in a gym. I feel like open gym videos for an NBA player don't really show what you got going forward as to on the court 5-on-5 things. Great, I want to see him healthy. I want to see him play at his best. It would just be interesting seeing guys like Kobe Bryant and many others tear their Achilles and just not be the same player after that. Hopefully, he will set a precedent and maybe be different after that. I just don't know if that's something he's going to be able to do. But it would just be interesting going forward to see what he is next year with Kyrie Irving, that fit. Both of them kind of being buddies. It will be interesting how they perform. We didn't really get a chance to see it this year. We aren't going to see it this year. We will see it next year. But I'm excited. It will be another contender in the East. Be interesting to see throwing Kevin Durant onto that roster. So the next around the league, another one I'll let you talk about, has been the pretty good performance of Marcus Smart lately. Walk us through that.
Yeah, and if you watched the game last night, Marcus Smart sealed the game with a steal. And I wanted to talk more so about chemistry and having a leader and identity with Marcus Smart than I did his stats. But, of course, I'll throw a couple out to start. He posted a defensive rating below 100 once in his career, which is phenomenal. And this season, he's been tasked with guarding the likes of almost every single position. He's been matched with Giannis Antetokounmpo for 30 possessions, Spencer Dinwiddie for 30, Zach LaVine for 30. He's been rotated on to Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, Ben Simmons. He's held Kawhi Leonard to a terrible stat line, 1 of 7 from the field. Trae Young, 5 of 14 from the field. And I think it's really important to have an anchor like Marcus Smart, because not only in the locker room is he the gel that's holding this operation together, but on the court, it's super important to have a vocal leader and somebody you trust. And his teammates trust him both on offense and defense. This is a guy that's improved his three-point shooting every season of his career up until this point, where this is a career high for him. And he's just a player that has an endless motor, and he's a team-first guy. And that's super important to have a vocal leader like that, because it's great for your chemistry both on and off the court.
Yeah, I think he's a pivotal part of that team. I feel like I was looking at this other day, the Sixers-Celtics rivalry. It's just like I'm thinking like no, there's no real hate between Tatum and Embiid. Really, it's just like I'm going through parts like who do we really dislike, and it's really Marcus Smart is the centerpiece of it. He is the culture and like the face and everything of the Boston Celtics in court wise. He's just a great defender. He is full effort. He has been playing great. He's kind of a guy whose numbers really don't show all the time on the stat sheet, but the effort's always there. Would you say? Do you agree he's a first team all defense guard this year?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, looking at some of his numbers and just who he's guarded, he's really been through the ringer. He's been guarding Buddy Hield, Trae Young, Julius Randle, Josh Richardson, Bradley Beal to Paul George and Kevin Love, Rajon Rondo to Furkan Korkmaz, Tobias Harris and Brandon Ingram, all the way to Derrick Rose. I mean, he's been guarding everybody this season, and his effort, it doesn't go unnoticed. Having a player like that that's so active on the floor defensively and so vocal, it's just incredibly important, and I'm happy for Marcus Smart that he's thriving in Boston.
Yeah, I think him and Ben Simmons are your first team all defensive guards. If they consider, I guess you would consider Ben a point guard in that sense. I feel like they both have just been phenomenal defenders. But yeah, Marcus Smart is really just the heart and soul of that Celtics team with Kemba, and it's just I think they're going to be a team you really won't want to face in the playoffs. They are a hard-working group, and it'll be interesting to see now they got Hayward back a while ago. I feel like they're kind of starting to hit their groove a little bit, getting the swing of things. So it'll be definitely exciting to see going forward. So the another one we kind of had, I forget if it was last night or 2 nights ago, Bojan Bogdanovic, probably the craziest game winner we have seen all season against Houston. Double guarded, about 5 feet behind the three-point line, just complete chuck with 2 seconds on the clock. It goes in, game winner. What did you think of that shot, Brock?
I mean, there was no way to defend that. It was one of those acrobatic three-point shots that you just can't defend, and you watch through the air and you pray it doesn't go in. And unfortunately for Houston, it did. But this Utah team is hitting their stride. And in January, they were arguably the best team in basketball. They had the best offensive rating, the best net rating, and the best true shooting percentage in basketball. They don't foul a lot. They practice good ball security, and they have a lot of able-bodied three-point shooters. So Houston, they lose again, and Utah, they win again and continue rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will just be incredible to see them go forward. They've kind of started they're kind of like Boston. They're kind of getting the groove of things. Now, I thought that was a crazy shot. I'm going to go back in time with you, Utah, a little bit. A couple nights ago, something I wouldn't say is their fault is more as to the guys in the black and white playing the Portland Trailblazers the other night. Damian Lillard, absolute incredible game from Lillard. At the end, he's going for a layup, drives it, hits the backboard, goes off, and Gobert blocks it, which would be a goaltend, but the referees swallowed their whistle. Utah won. It was the announcers were calling in real time that it should have been a goaltend. Lillard's out there calling it to get the goaltend. Everybody's saying it's a goaltend, and the referees just don't call it. It felt kind of ridiculous. And at the end of the day, the referees will not get in trouble for this. The players will be fined for commenting about it. There's something that needs to be done to replay system. There was no challenge called because there was no timeouts left. I think it was what the reasoning was. There needs to be something for this. That was an absolute ridiculous loss. It should have been a Portland win, but instead a team that's in a pivotal playoff chase now just got a ridiculous loss that wasn't necessary. What did you think about all of that?
Portland is 2 games back from the 8th seed. They have 25 wins and 29 losses. That would have propelled them to 26. One less loss, so they would have potentially been tied with Grizzlies for that 8th seed. And that's a huge loss for Portland, and Damian Lillard has every right to be furious about that non-call because it was clearly a goaltend. I don't know how the officiating crew messed that call up, and people were talking about that being one of the worst calls we've seen in the previous decade, similar to the Kevin Durant call against Houston when he stepped out of bounds last year, and that was a non-call. But I think it was good that the NBA didn't fine Damian Lillard for his post-game comments, despite how reckless they may have been. But if anybody is to be fined or held accountable, it has to be this officiating crew. I mean, that ball was clearly on the backboard, and then Rudy Gobert clearly goaltended that basket, which would have changed the outcome of the game, in my opinion. It would have been tied, and Utah still has a couple of seconds to operate, but it goes into overtime, in my opinion, and Damian Lillard wins that game for Portland. He's probably the scariest player in the NBA to face right now. I mean, given this rampage that he's on and how good he is and how daring he is, Damian Lillard is one of the most underrated guards in the NBA somehow. And I feel like people don't realize that until it's playoff time when he's on a national audience on a consistent basis. But Damian Lillard is one of the most consistent hoopers in the NBA, and he just dominates games at the point guard position.
Yeah, I feel like Lillard's going to be one of those guys. He's appreciated by the fans who are really into it. I think really big basketball fans understand how incredible this guy is, and he is appreciated. But the casual fan, I feel like they kind of get it, but they don't realize it. And after it's all said and done, we look back several years in the future, I feel like a lot of fans are like, wow, we really did appreciate this guy when we had him. And probably he's probably, I would say, outside of Anthony Davis, the best player in the NBA who, I guess Harden too, that doesn't have a ring. I would put Harden and AD above him, but I think he's the third best player in the NBA without a ring currently. But he is just incredible. He wills Portland. I'll talk about him more in a second when we get into our next subject, but I just feel like this was something that he was kind of robbed of, and he's just been playing fantastic lately. So I'll get into our first new topic we have here, our weekly segments. The second one, we have hot and not. So each week or every couple of days or so, we're going to pick 1 to 2 players that we think is hot and 1 to 2 players that we feel is not. So, Brock, start us off. Who's your hot of the week?
Jason Tatum. I'll continue praising Boston Celtics on this podcast. Jason Tatum has been the most efficient player in basketball in the past week. He's averaging 28.8 points per game, 9th in the NBA, and he has the 5th most total points over that 5-game span. Shooting nearly 50% from the field. He's shooting over 50% from 3 on nearly 10 attempts per game from beyond the arc. Adding a steal and a block, Boston is 5-0 in their last 5, and he's been one of the most dominant players in the fourth quarter in the NBA in the past week. His offensive rating altogether is 3rd in the NBA. In the fourth quarter, his offensive rating is 124.1, and his true shooting percentage is 72.8. Those numbers are mind-boggling. In the fourth quarter, he has the fourth most points scored in the previous 5 games. He's shooting almost 55% from beyond the arc, and he's gotten to the line 10 times where he's made 9 of those 10 free throws. Jason Tatum is a player who's exciting to watch. He's young. He's very polished. He's got a nice jump shot, and it's just awesome to see him grow in Boston.
Yeah, so I've like you said, I think he did great. My hot of the week is somebody we were just talking about 20 seconds ago, Damian Lillard. He has been incredible. He's averaging over 40 points per game these last couple of games, just willing Portland to wins. Been absolutely dominant, bringing them back in the playoff race. You're going to have Yusuf Nurkic getting healthy in a bit time, Zach Collins. I think this, if they get in play, they will be the most dangerous 6th or 8th seed that we've really seen for a while, in my opinion. I mean, I think they're better than they were last year. Do you think this is Do you think this Portland team's better than last year?
Yeah, definitely. And Portland's always dangerous because of Damian Lillard. But this season alone, you had Carmelo Anthony, who diversifies your offense in the half court. He can play the post and he can step out and aid a little bit with spacing. But Carmelo Anthony has been in this league for over a decade, right? So he understands the gruesome life of the NBA. And come playoff time, Carmelo Anthony's a player you definitely want to have. Now, Hassan Whiteside has been adding a lot for this Portland team. While offensively, he may not do much in the way of spacing, he's playing great defense. Over 2 blocks a game, and his presence in the paint is alarming. So this Portland team is hitting on all cylinders, and I really hope they can ascend into the playoffs because Portland's a team that you always love to watch because of Damian Lillard. And like you said, they're a scary 6 to 8 seed.
Yeah, they are. Look, between Lillard and McCollum playing well, this is a high-powered offense that is starting to find its swing. And you're seeing a lot of teams recently, I've kind of said this a lot, they're starting to find their swing. It's making the NBA very competitive. This is probably one of the most even leagues we really have seen in a while, in my opinion. And I think it'll be great to see come playoff time, whoever they get matched up against, whether it be Houston or Dallas, whoever is up in that seeding, I think it'll be really interesting to see. And I think it'll be a great playoff matchup going forward for fans. I don't know for either team if they would really enjoy that. Portland might, but the 3 seed, I don't know if they would enjoy going against Portland. But as an Eastern Conference guy, I'll enjoy watching that as a non-biased fan. So we'll get into the other side of this, the knots of the week. I'll go first. Gary Harris is my knot of the week. He is just not good at all right now. I mean, I'll read some of the stats that you were kind of sharing from me earlier. In 32 minutes played, he's averaging 5 points on 18.2 field goal percentage. I'll let you share the 3-point stat. Share that 3-point stat for us real quick.
Well, what are we looking at here? His true shooting percentage is horrendous. He hasn't made a catch-and-shoot 3-point attempt in the previous week, and he's shooting 0.0% from beyond the arc in that previous week on nearly 2 attempts per game.
It is just – I mean, I feel like he was somebody with a lot of hope, and it's just – he was shopped around the trade deadline, but he was made available, and he wasn't shipped. I think you kind of see why right here. It's just he was seen as somebody as the future of that team, and then – Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr. kind of crept their way in the picture, and he's kind of taken a step back. So I'm hoping he finds his stride. I liked him a lot a few years back when he was really getting the swing of things, but he has just been horrendous this week. Brock, who's
Yeah, now kick it to me because I can't wait. I can't wait to raffle off some of these stats.
Brock, you got it. Who's your knot of the week?
I'm taking Al Horford, right? The $97 million man that Philadelphia is deciding to pay over $20 million a season. Okay, in the previous 5 games, Al Horford is averaging 8 points a game on 30.6% shooting. His 115.1 defensive rating is worse than James Harden's, Jimmy Butler's, and Carmelo Anthony. He has a negative 11.2 net rating, and that's not the worst of it. He is the 5th worst true shooting in the NBA over the past 5 games. He has 12 touches in the paint. You know who has just as many? Colin Sexton. He has more. Al Horford has 3 more post-ups in the past 5 games than Vince Carter. Jack, Vince Carter's been playing before we were born, okay? Now, he's 10 of 27 from beyond the arc on catch-and-shoot opportunities, and in the post, he's 1 of 7 from the field, 14.3% with 1 turnover and no assists. It doesn't get much worse than that, Jack.
It is just horrendous. Fun fact, I was talking about I'll be at the Sixers-Clippers game tomorrow. I'll be appreciating Al Horford. I just want to see the reaction. I'll be wearing my Al Horford throwback jersey just because it's one of the jerseys I haven't worn in a game yet. I love me some jerseys. I just love the throwback look of it. He'll be appreciated by me underneath my hoodie. Speaking of fashion, we got...
What do you mean underneath your hoodie? You're not wearing it loud and proud?
The hoodie will be unzipped.
All right. That's good.
But yeah, talking about some fashion here, we got our third segment. It is incredibly called the Fresh Meter. So we each have one player whose outfit we absolutely love this week. Brock, this was your idea. You were ready for this one. Who's your Fresh Meter of the week?
Yeah, I was thinking Terry Rozier, Jack guy, but I'm taking Devin Booker, right? And if you show the picture of Devin Booker, this dude is fly as hell. He's got these Cartier glasses, if I'm correct, in this nice little zip. It's like a zip hoodie. I don't know what this is called. It's before my time, but nonetheless, the design is clean. The aesthetic is nice. And to top it off, man, he's got AirPods in, but these aren't just any AirPods. They're Louis Vuitton AirPods. I don't even want to know what the price of those Louis V AirPods are because they make me sick. But Devin Booker's out here with the fresh cut, the nice little watch on his wrist, the AirPods, the glasses, and the zip. It's just a beautifully aesthetic outfit, in my opinion.
I love it. I'm looking at it. I wish I could pull something off like that. My outfit of the week, I'm a big Jersey guy, if you couldn't tell. You'll probably hear a lot of Jersey talk from me. God bless you. Whenever the throwbacks or the cities or swingmans ever get released every year, you'll never hear the end of it from me. I'll probably have 3 pods breaking down all of them. But mine this week is courtesy I saw via our friend who's been on the podcast before, Ben Golliver. It's DeMar DeRozan. He's got a yellow hoodie, and over top of it, he is paying homage to the late Kobe Bryant in the 96-97 gold NBA logo purple Lakers jersey. I love it. I'm a big jersey over hoodie guy. Every day you expect me that. I'm a proud owner of 46 jerseys, so I love me some jerseys. It's well known, but it's sleek, it's fresh, it's just paying homage to somebody great, and I love it. He had another jersey on the day before, but that was last week, so I technically can't include that. But throwback Kobe Bryant jersey, that's my Fresh Meter of the week.
All right, paying homage to KB, and DeMar DeRozan's been doing that. I think that's his second or third time wearing an outfit top with a Kobe Bryant uniform. So, Jack, I respect your pick, but listen, man, it's just not as fresh as the young Booker. It's not as fresh as the young Booker with Slam Magazine. Him, Cat, and D'Lo would be the freshest trio basketball has ever seen.
I would agree. I don't think it tops Booker's. It's just my choice of the week. What I really loved. I didn't even see the Booker one. If I saw it, I would have picked it. But I think that's all we got for today. I want to thank you guys for listening. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PostPositionPod. Check us out on iTunes. Leave 5 stars. You can check us out on the Paid in Lines website. You can follow Brock on Twitter at LandisBrock, LANDES Brock, and myself on Twitter at JackConnellTPL. And our third host, who you'll hear from later, Jack Duffy on Twitter at JackDuffyTPL. Brock, is there anything you got going on you want to shout out?
No, man. Just head over to my Twitter. I'm always posting stats, and now I got 2 podcasts to do, so I'd appreciate all the listens.
Awesome. Yeah, you'll probably see some stuff from me. I'll be down at the Sixers game, like I said, 1,000,000 times tomorrow night. I'll probably be sharing out some fun stuff. I'll be seeing my guy, Jason Blevins. You'll probably see me talking to him. It'll be exciting to see. We'll be looking at some Kawhi Leonard, Paul George action. Hopefully they're playing. Pat Beverly is not. He's hurt, but I'm excited to see that. You'll see probably post-position. You'll see some of me. You'll probably catch me on Party on Broad or Suit Up with our friend Chris Dibler. But for us, we'll see you guys. Have a good one.